Ready to kick things off on this Monday. Thanks for joining us. Jump right into it. Talk a little bit about Michigan. They had a good weekend. We're sitting here now in the middle of July, and I had to take my watch. It was I thought I set a chime or an alarm or timer or something, but then it wasn't shutting off. So I had to take off my watch and throw it down the hall, and I can't hear it. So that's good. So you can't hear it either, but that was a little bit of a quick move at the line. So I've got 4 minutes. I'm thinking, okay, let's see. And I wasn't able to shut it off, but I'm doing good. Other than that, we'll see if I'm able to shut off my phone. You know, it should be a little bit easier to be powering off and everything, but it wasn't. It was tough. It had me just a little bit on edge for a second, but I'm all right. A couple deep breaths and I'm good to go. Well, if you paid the extra 25, you are already playing Michigan. You're not here. That's all you're doing. You're playing college football. EA Sports 25. You're in the game. You're going to be in the game for the rest of the summer until kickoff. That thing will take up all of your time. So we'll talk about that. Also, Alex Orji. I was thinking about, I made a lot of comparisons with the Alex Orji of current quarterbacks in college and in pro, but I hadn't compared him to any other Michigan quarterbacks. And I started going back, and then I thought, Denard Robinson. Let's compare Alex Orji and Denard Robinson to see if anything comes out of that. But we'll start with recruiting. It was a nice weekend for Michigan. There were 2 wide receivers on Saturday that had Michigan listed in their top 5, and one of them picked Michigan, and that's Phillip Wright III. It was a first for me. I have been on links that have taken me to a live news conference where a kid is announcing what school he's going to. There's been plenty of those that I've said in there, but I've never got involved with the chat while it was going on, and I was getting involved with chat, and it was getting pretty. It was a wild ride, but as a first timer during a live announcement, you have to think about that there's going to be a lot of different people from a lot of different schools saying a lot of different things, but that was kind of a unique experience for me. But right after taking his Georgia hat off, he did the right thing by picking up the maize and blue hat and ultimately selecting the Wolverines. And, Phillip Wright, he's 6'1", 180. He's a 4-star, and he's a flat-out speedster. So Michigan got themselves a good one here. They already have a wide receiver commit in Jacob Washington, and they're in on another one. And they come away. I think if you're a Michigan fan, you come away with this weekend with a big smile on your face, and it puts Michigan up to 16 commitments. Rivals has Michigan with a team ranking of 13 right now. And Rivers, I'm sorry, it's not Phillip Rivers, Phillip Wright. He said he loved their vision and my vision are alike. So, hey, nothing wrong with that. Visions lining up as he pledges to come to Michigan. So that's good. 16 and up to number 13. And they got a couple guys, you think about, at least right now, there's probably another 3 or 4 that you could put on there that, Michigan buzzing around. And then there'll be another 3 or 4 that will come around as this month goes on, and you see some of the different names, whether they're flips, Michigan's on their phone. Of course, they got to keep the guys that they have, but, they'll be working it. They're not done with 16, but Andrew Marsh is a wide receiver. It would be nice to, Michigan get 3 wide receivers in this class. That would be nice. They got 2 this past year, 3 the year before. So yeah, 2 or 3 a year, you're good to go there. Andrew Babalola, I just did see the Rivals Midwest recruiting expert. He was opining on some of the big names and where he thought they would end up. And I don't know if it's a future cast, he just made his pick. And his pick for Michigan or for Babaloa was Michigan. So that's good. Never hurts to have one of the guys that is following it and following it closely. The Midwest recruiting analyst for Rivals picking Michigan for Babaloa. That's good. And then NOB, this would be a surprise to me, but Michigan is in there. He's got there's a picture that we have up on the screen with a bunch of different hats, but the Michigan hat is there and it could fit on the top for NOB. Some names to keep an eye on. But, you've been following it. You're like, I know all this. And hey, that's good for things that you don't know. And some of those other targets and the flips and what's going on there, plus features and all of it is you want to know, you join up with the Maize and Blue Review. That's why I'm here. I'm here to tell you that you go to michigan.rivals.com and sign up. You also get access to the fabulous posting board, The Den, where like-minded fans go on there and discuss everything that's going on with Michigan all day, all night. Really, any angle that you can think of, it's covered there. And then you just discuss it with Michigan fans and away you go. Go on. Like to see you over there on the Maize and Blue Review. Go to michigan.rivals.com. That's the way that it's done. Well, today is the day. If you paid that extra money to get in, you get, I think you had to pay $25. You're in with EA College Football 25. I've seen a lot of the videos. I've seen the game being played. It looks spectacular. It's been 10 years, and where technology has gone in 10 years, it's as good as it gets right now. I was going to say, I can't imagine. I mean, I can kind of imagine it. I see it happening. There are so many different things that you have to do where you're making the picks and you're the coach. It seems like a whole heck of a lot, but once you put in 100 hours, you start getting a little bit familiar with your offensive line and your recruiting and where, how the game will play differently if you're the visiting team. And then once you put in, 200 hours over the next 2 weeks or so, well, then you start getting some of those nuances. And then when you play every day for by the time the season starts, you're good to go. And then, that was always the problem with me when it came down to video games. And look, I'm surprised that my friends that I went to school with ended up having as productive of lives and jobs that they actually have. Because if we go back to when I was in school and there was only one TV and we had a video game count, that's all anybody did all day, all night. It was video games, and the hours that they would log. And then when I would sit down, I'm like, well, wait a second, what's this button? They're running into the end zone before I'm even looking down at my controller. So I didn't put in, you got to put in so much time, but you love the process of sitting down and playing the game. And look, it looks like it's awesome. I can tell you this, it looks awesome. Here's Donovan Edwards in the end zone at the big house with a close-up. That looks awesome. Here was Donovan Edwards playing Texas. Donovan Edwards running himself, playing Michigan as he takes Donovan Edwards into the end zone. He got a big grin as he was able to score with number 7 from the Maize and Blue. Great job. Like to see that. Like to see Art in real life meet when it comes down to the 7th of September. And then here's Donovan Edwards skating by a would-be Ohio State tackler, I presume on the way to the end zone, because I look up top and it looks like nobody's going to stop. if Donovan Edwards has a step on you at the 20 and you've got nothing but green grass in front of you to the end zone, that's going to be a touchdown for Michigan. So there you go. Cool graphics. EA Sports is out there, and enjoy yourself and come up for air once in a while. So, Alex Orji versus Denard Robinson. I was thinking about the quarterbacks. Not a lot to compare with JJ. You look at some of the guys in their first year: Cade, Joe, Shea. McCaffrey would be one. This McCaffrey, he was a heck of a runner, and I thought he was going to be excellent. But when he saw Joe Milton throwing the ball, he decided to take off, and that was disappointing to me because I really wanted to see McCaffrey get a chance and play. And maybe if he would have been the guy in instead of Cade. But hey, however it ended up working out, I don't see a lot of Orji and Milton or Shea or Wilton Spate or Rudock. So then I kept going back. Devin, big Devin, maybe. No, Shoelace. Shoelace is the one. So Orji versus Shoelace. The current comps, Jalen Milroe from Alabama. It was Harbaugh last year during Rose Bowl preparation that said, Jalen Milroe reminded him of a much more polished Alex Orji. So, he made the comp. And so then you could, you go with that from the head coach making the comparison there, kind of in reverse now that Orji is likely going to be the starter. And because of his ability in the weight room and just like being I don't know what if it's once in a lifetime, but a just, powerhouse superstar in the weight room playing quarterback. That's Orji. That's Jalen Hurts. So that's been my comparison. But when I think about Shoelace, is there anything that you think of? And here's a couple things. Before I looked at some of the numbers, I was just thinking about it. And the thing that I thought about with Denard Robinson is that one, he was great against Notre Dame in those first 2 years. The other thing with Denard is that he at the end, I thought he was he was better early than he was late. And then as his career went on, it would have been better if they would have had Devin Gardner as the quarterback and Denard Robinson as a runner. Denard Robinson was a great runner. Not so great when it came down to being a quarterback, although he was close to being a great player. And for a lot of people, it's been 10 years or so. And, it's like, that's their quarterback. I guess it's JJ, like, hey, that's my QB. And so, you have a warm spot in your heart about Denard Robinson as the player. And I do remember that first game against Western where he came in and he kind of dropped the ball. Maybe he was tying his shoe. I don't know what he was doing, but he went for a 30-yard touchdown. And the rest really was, there's a lot of spectacular plays, especially when he was going up against Notre Dame. So that's what I think about with Denard. And then he had the really good year where Michigan lost the 2 games, but went on. I think that was the pour some sugar on me season, where they won the bowl game with Va Tech and everything. So you're heading into the next season, but they play Alabama in the first game down in Texas. And it was a real rude awakening for Denard. He didn't have it, but when I think of Orji and Denard, I think Orji's got a better defense. He's got a better team around him. And I don't know. Like I think Orji's going to be a great runner, but it's hard for me to say that he's going to be as great as Denard because Denard was such a great runner. But can he throw the ball? Let me get back to that. Can he throw the ball better than Denard Robinson? And that's where it comes. I think about it. I looked at some of the numbers, and I guess I said the great runner, and then the 2 games in 2011 that Michigan lost with Shoelace as their quarterback. They lost to Michigan State and Iowa. They did get to the bowl when they beat Va Tech. But if you look at these rushing numbers from Denard, 14 touchdowns, 16 touchdowns. I mean, he ran for 1,700 yards, most of those against Notre Dame as a sophomore. And he averaged 6.6 per carry, 5.3 in that 2011 season. I mean, he really was a great runner. The passing numbers are interesting if you look and you're looking at that completion percentage. His first real year, first real season as a starter, Denard was had a completion percentage of 62.5. You know, if you could if you told me Alex Orji would come out and have a 63% completion percentage, I'd say, oh, Michigan's going to be cooking. Are you kidding me? With his ability to run the ball, a 63% completion percentage, man, things will be looking really good. Plus an 8.8 per attempt. If those were the numbers for Orji, but then you see they dropped down 55, 53. But all of this, you could say, what do you get out of this, really, when you compare these quarterbacks? To me, what I got out of it is the interceptions from Shoelace, and then how there were just way too many. He had an 18 touchdown debut as a starter in 2010, but he threw it away to the other team 11 times. 2011 was really good and everything. 20 touchdowns, fine. 15 interceptions. And then 9-9 when he was, and then ultimately giving way to Devin Garter, but 20 touchdowns and 15 interceptions isn't getting it done. So if I'm looking for, I don't know, I'm just reminding myself, it's something that I think I've said every time I talk about Alex Orji, that he's got to keep the interceptions low. And he's got a great running game. It's another thing I didn't mention. I know Devion Smith there with Shoelace, but there's a nice stable of backs behind Orji. And oh yeah, on the other side of the ball, this could be a great defense. And so you play to the great defense. You have others around you, the talent with the running game. If you're managing the game, you're keeping those interceptions low. Well, now you're really talking about something, aren't you? I think so, when it comes down to it. All right, let's look at some of the feedback and what people are saying. Here's Ferris. I missed Ferris last week. I was going to go on a show, and then it didn't happen for me. I'm sorry about that. Ferris wants me to rank McCord, Orji, and Howard, assuming that Orji can get to about 60% passing completion. So McCord, the quarterback at Ohio State last year, Will Howard, I'm assuming the Ohio State quarterback, who is a fifth-year guy and was at Kansas State prior to this. Well, I'm going to put Howard at number one. I think that's an easy one. Howard has played, tons of football. Orji's completed one pass as a starting quarterback, and that is also why I would put McCord in front of Orji. If you're asking me, well, what about, ranking them after the season? I don't know, possibly that could be different, but there's no real argument for Orji in front of these two. Howard, he is a little hot and cold. He looked great in that Big 12 championship game against TCU. I mean, he looked like, wow. I mean, Ohio State watches that and they're thinking, oh, yeah, this is the guy. And then you watch him against on a Thursday, Friday night at Oklahoma State, and he looks terrible. So, he does run hot and cold. And McCord, McCord is all right. He was the first-time starter. Quarterbacks, I don't know what maybe I do a little bit. Well, Ohio State, they've had such a run of exceptional play at that position. They're just expecting guys to be like pros right out of the gate. And, they should have kept McCord. But, like I said, I've seen enough, at least on the good side, from Howard to look at it and say that he has the experience and the ceiling right now. That's how I would rank him. Ferris asking me if I'm getting the game. Are you on Xbox or PS5? Yeah, I'm not going to get the game. I stopped playing video games a long time ago because of my college roommates, but I know how much people love it, and I have been enjoying looking at the cut ups and videos of the game. It looks fabulous, and I could see if I was ever going to get back into playing, being I guess I don't know if you just become a gamer or get into gaming, but if this would be the one that I would be involved with, that it took 10 years and people were so into it 10 years ago. I mean, that the hype and the anticipation is real. I think about things that happen every 4 years, like the Olympics, and people that love soccer, and how they have to wait every 4 years, 10 years for these gamers to have it. That's something. Scott is ranking them like me: McCord, Howard, and Orji. Here's Colin, who says Kyle McCord wasn't a bad quarterback. He was just playing a system built for a Stroud type guy. He said Will Howard reminds him of Shea Patterson, can be good in flashes, but then he looks like he has no clue what he's doing. I think that's fair. Scott is saying he thinks Howard's a better passer than Shea. Shea played well in the CFL the past few weeks. Yeah, I'm not, here I am comparing, former Michigan quarterbacks going all the way back to Shoelace. So I've said a lot about how I feel about Shea Patterson. He was odd in that he couldn't stand in the pocket and deliver the ball downfield accurately. He could run around and he was more accurate, but not standing there. He just couldn't get the ball down the field. He might have had, you see it in baseball, where the guys, they call it the yips, where you can't even throw it to first base. You'll be a second baseman and you'll just go to throw it over to second base, and you throw it into the stands. There was a pitcher for the Cardinals a few years ago named Rick Ankiel. He was an excellent fastball, but then he got where he was, throwing it, hitting the mascot like in Bull Durham, and he just couldn't do it. And I think that shades of that, standing in the pocket. Here's a guy 20 yards downfield, wide open. Shea, miss him by 20 yards over and over again. That's it. John is getting ready to play video games. Colin is agreeing with Scott 100%. He sees glimpses of Shea when he watches Will Howard. Colin has bought his Xbox. He got it a month ago, and he got his physical copy of the game to go along with his Desmond Howard and Denard copy for his Michigan collection. Yeah, the cover of the games are sweet. There's no doubt about that. We have a couple of, there's Shoelaces. It looks great. And where's the other cover? There it is, with Edwards, Donovan Edwards right there on the front. Scott was talking about Denard just not being able to pass well enough in the end, and he's right. Keegan is ready to be entertained. I don't know. You're talking about this show. Hopefully we are entertaining you, Keegan. That was an entertaining feedback for there. Scott is coming out of left field with a surprise star from this year's team, first team All-American, Giovanni El-Hadi. That would be nice. I thought that El-Hadi, it wasn't a sure thing at this time, was it already? Maybe by last, but I didn't think both Keegan and Zinter, having those guys come back, it was such a boost to me. You're thinking, here's two NFL guys on the inside, that it wouldn't surprise me if Keegan and Zinter play 10, 15 years in the NFL. I mean, those guys are great. And, the captains, you don't get that often when you're talking about offensive linemen. These guys are just pillars. And so El-Hadi, it was like, he was blocked. And you're thinking it's just a matter of time when those guys move on, that El-Hadi is going to slide in there and people are going to be like, yeah, this guy's great. The one part about that is when Zinter got hurt, if you would have asked me who's coming in to play guard, I would have said, oh, that's for sure going to be El Hadi, but that's not. They moved. Who did they move? Barnhart inside, and then they were doing it differently than I thought. So I don't know. It doesn't mean that he can't be the surprise player. It just for me, it was shocking that they ended up going that route. So Rashad's going back and talking about a little bit of recruiting. He's not 100% sold on Marsh. Too much time between now and the end of August. Well, don't get sold on anyone. Yeah, that's that far out. Michigan's in with a chance, and at this point, let's see. I think if I had to say, do I feel better about Babalola or Marsh? I would say Babalola, because Michigan is their offensive line and what they do speaks for itself. Wide receivers and top ones and this long, I can totally understand why you would say that. But John's talking about a real coin flip, and I don't know if that's a coin flip. I felt better than a coin flip. So now you're saying that it's a coin flip. So I don't know if you feel like Stanford has made some time up. At 2 hours to go until it's game time, till kickoff. So this is like the pregame for EA college football. It's the feeling's gone for me. It's been too long for being a video gamer. Yeah, I was talking to a friend of mine last night. I was texting him, and he was all the way back to he's been a gamer before they even called it gamer, as a video game guy. And I was like, well, I was sure that he had pre-ordered and he was sitting back and he had the $25 bonus so he could play it immediately. And he's like, yeah, I think I'm going to get it. It looks cool. And I thought, wow, really? KB, are you serious? And then, he's like, a lot of things change over 10 years, but he's like, what do you mean? They changed what? And I'm just thinking that he just slow played himself. So I think that in another week or two, he's going to have that, and he'll have played it. I'm afraid, I didn't say this to him, but I think that he lost his zest for he loved Madden and he loved EA. And I think he's like Keegan, that it's been so long, out of sight, out of mind. He found himself other things to do and other interests other than video games. And I think he feels like if he picks it up, that he's going to be back. And that's somebody like, I don't think you just play college football 25 for an hour a day. That feels like you're playing 24 hours a day. That feels like, you're sitting down and you're attached to that controller forever. I didn't say that to him. I did say, I bet in 2 weeks you'll have it and you'll be back. And he sent me some emoji that he knew what he was talking about. Denard. Johnny talking about Denard throwing for 25 and running for 1,700. Yeah. 62% really jumped out. That's for sure. At least it isn't called NCAA. Yeah, the NCAA. I was thinking about the NCAA today, Keegan, where the NCAA and what they have going, they still, the last time they made an announcement, it was that they were no longer going to be pursuing situations where it came down because there was the pay for play. They had the Virginia case, the antitrust. It was right when the antitrust came out there. Instead of them saying, yes, we no longer have that rule, they said they would no longer be pursuing payments. Now, that doesn't make it right, so why did they just come out and say, yes, we no longer, we have changed? They couldn't come out and say that. So that bugged me. That bugged me then, and it was bugging me today that they didn't come out and say, yeah, you want to promise the payment to a player? Go ahead. You want it's a free for all now. They didn't have to say free for all, but they could say something like student athletes now can engage in bartering, whatever however they wanted to word it. They could come up with something pretty quick, but instead they came up with we will no longer be pursuing. What? That's what you guys are doing? Kind tick. New third base head coach at OSU. Only recruit 1-stars till I get fired. Fall from grace. Go to ECU. Awesome unis to rebuild and hopefully work my way back to a powerhouse program like Michigan. I like the approach. The recruiting. Only recruit 1-stars. That's something. Kind I wonder if you were in my fantasy league. Like you picked 1 year. I did this. I went all Michigan players. I didn't do really good that year. It was like Tyrone Wheatley was my running back. I didn't think I had Tom Brady and I think Braylon back then. Scott was saying Gardner was a bust, but also misused by Michigan. Yeah, he had the great game against Notre Dame, the night game, second night game ever. And he played so fantastic in that game. You saw everything that you were hoping to see from Gardner, but yeah, he didn't really get his chance then. So yeah, you're right, misused. So that's it. Who's a bigger bust? Well, I don't know. Shane Morris. I would put Shane in that category. It didn't work out for him. Andre says Gardner wasn't a bust. His O-line was busted. And here's Dave saying he wasn't a bust. They just didn't get him in. They didn't even have him at wide receiver. He was a quarterback. And there was the Shoelace experiment and not the Gardner. And then even the one game at Nebraska, they were playing some other guy that I forget and not Devin. I was pretty frustrated about that. They screwed that up. Shad says the Notre Dame game was insane on the ground in South Bend. That was one of the greatest games I've ever seen by a Michigan player ever. That was just vintage Denard. And just picture him. He was just off, and it would be like there wasn't players around him for 20 yards a bunch of times. Like he would just take off, and next thing you know, he's just flying, and the only thing you could see is grass around him. And you just see Denard, flying at South Bend. That was a spectacular game. Denard was spectacular, but not good. Here we go. We're bringing out the. I brought it up, so here we are. DG has turned out to be a very good announcer, color guy. Yeah, I agree with that. He's doing a heck of a job. The first time I'd seen him on TV was doing a Lions preseason game, and it can be difficult if you're a Michigan fan to be like, oh, I don't like this guy, or you automatically just love a guy because he's Michigan. But I tried to evaluate it with just how he was in. He got it. He was I would say, I don't know if you're just a natural as a broadcaster. I saw Gardner one night out at a bar in Ann Arbor. He was there and he was doing some telestrating on the TV of a Michigan game. And a friend of mine said he wanted to go see Gardner do this. Would I go with him? And I did. He took his kid with him. And I watched Gardner go through, and I thought he was a natural then. I watched it. I'm like, wow, he should be on TV. And then he was on TV, and I watched him. I think he is a natural. But, that takes away from, he's got to put in a lot of work. I don't think he just shows up and dresses nice and smiles. And then, I think he has to work. Worst offensive line, Johnny says, with Gardner. Can't really judge them. Those teams were bad. Yeah, I just think about the Michigan State defense, and that was the game that I felt bad for Devin Gardner. They had the negative yardage. It was that whole thing. Michigan State playing really well, Michigan not well. That was a tough time. Yes, you do. You absolutely know that. Yeah, I mean, if you want to call somebody that was a 5-star a bust, you can. I think people talking about the offensive line, I think are right on, and that he really didn't get that chance. He wasn't. They didn't handle him well. That's part of being a quarterback. You have to handle him. Keegan says he was a 4-star. We could argue about that. I think maybe you look, maybe it was a composite 4-star. I think some had him as a 5-star, but I don't get too hung up on that. So if you're Keegan, if you're mad at me, like pounding your fist through the wall right now and calling me names like he was, for sure a 4-star, like you got all the services and that's really big to you on the rating. I'm sorry. I'm just telling you that I think there were some that had him as a 5-star. So that's it. Andre's mentioning that DG spent 90% of his career injured. And let's see what John has to say. His favorite quarterbacks: Denard, Leach, Harbaugh, JJ McCarthy, in no particular order. I got to put JJ. Can you not put? Say, how could you not? I feel like Harbaugh would be number one for me if it wasn't for John Wangler, who I would put at number one. John Wangler would be number one for me, followed by Jim Harbaugh, and then I would put JJ up there. Well, I would put Tom Brady in my top 5 too. If Tom Brady never played it down in the NFL, he would still be there. From what he went through and how he persevered and then how he played as a senior, how he held off Drew Henson and how he kept his wits about him and dropped those first 2 games in 98 and then had to deal with Henson the following year. The game that he played at Penn State, culminating with the Orange Bowl where he was awesome, where he got down 2 scores twice, which doesn't sound like a big deal now, but back then, 25 years ago, it was a big deal. Henson, Henson would be, I have to put Henson in there too. So wait a second. I don't know if I get 5. Wangler, Harbaugh, JJ, Brady, and Henson. There's a 5 for you. My Fithian's 5. Ferris is going to be doing a Michigan versus Texas simulation. Yeah, that's I would like to see that. We can go on all day here. Gardner was a good to great quarterback on a bad to worse teams. I wish we had a sophomore Gardner coming into this year. Yeah, well, I saw him at his best. And that's the thing about was playing Notre Dame all those years. When you played him every year, you'd come out and you'd play well against Notre Dame. And what did a lot of people say? It was just Notre Dame. We don't know if Notre Dame's any good or not. And that's the thing. It was for years like that. Michigan would play 2 real easy games, and then they would play Notre Dame, and that you'd play great against Notre Dame, and you're like, there's no real tell on if Michigan's going to have a good season or not, because you really couldn't say whether Notre Dame was all that good or not. Richard said he watched Edwards playing the game and it looked great. Yeah, watching Edwards play the game was fun. Edwards is, he's got a $1 million smile. Maybe he got $1 million for being on the cover of EA Sports, but maybe that's why he's smiling. He looked like he was pretty good at the game too. Ferris is not down at all on Orji. He's talking about him completing a forward pass. Richard thinks Edwards beats Texas. Here's a comp for Phillip Wright. Usain Bolt. Old Hadley. With the latest recruits Michigan landed, where are they ranked now? You think Michigan will finish with a top 5 class in 25? Keep up the good work, Denny. No, I don't think that they'll end up with a top 5 class. I think hoping that they get a top 10. They moved up to 13, Hadley, with you must just be stopping in. Their 16th commitment, at least where Rivals has them right now, up to number 13. I don't know exactly how they dole out the NIL money, but I think they go after the 5 stars, but I think that they have a budget, whatever their number is, whether it's 100,000, 500,000. I don't know what it is. I'll say 100,000. They'll have a 5-star, and when the 5 stars talking NIL, they'll say, "Yeah, well, we'll get this 100,000 immediately." I don't know how they actually communicate that to the player, and then the 5-star goes somewhere else, and they're like, "Yeah, we're talking millions." And if you're a 5-star, you've earned that ranking, and with that, the money in Michigan is they're not playing they've got their formula, and it's not a cap, although how they're approaching it. I know I don't know, I didn't speak clearly enough there. I do think though in the future, like with Brady Hart, who could be a 5-star quarterback at some point, however they communicated the money part, I think they understand that it's going to take. I don't think that if their budget was on everyone else $100,000, I think they realize that they have to open up the purse strings wider when it comes down to a quarterback in the future. And I would bet that Brady Hart, who is a quarterback from Florida who committed last month, the first commitment for the 2026 cycle, I bet that he is being promised more money than $100,000. But no, I don't think top 5. That would be shocking to me, but top 10 wouldn't be. I don't know what that is. Dash from The Incredibles, Ferris. That's I don't know anything about The Incredibles. Dono has some sick skills or stick skills, I guess both of them. Well, Rourke John talking about JJ was the most complete Michigan quarterback, followed by Harbaugh. Brady got better in the pros. Brady had a great senior year. And I would say that Henson lost 2 games as a junior. People got upset because he left and took Steinbrenner's money. He would have been great if he came back. But, Henson lost, what did he lose? 2 games as a junior. He lost at Purdue by 2 points to the future Hall of Famer Drew Brees. And then he put up 50 against Northwestern. And if Anthony Thomas doesn't inexplicably just drop the ball, has it, is running, and then just drops it, he's going to win that game. And I think that your assessment, John, and look, yeah, JJ won the championship. So that is a great way to break any kind of tie. I'm with you. JJ number 1. But I haven't seen a lot of love for Henson on here. Johnny was a Chad Henne supporter. I like Chad Henne. Ferris is talking about Phillip Wright could cut some time off his 40 if he can get Kenneth Grant to chase him. Well, remember, Kenneth Grant chased down the running back for Penn State and was one of the great highlights. Look, let's put it the way there's a lot of great highlights in a championship season. An underrated highlight for players that are coming back this year would have been that chase from behind with Kenneth Grant running down the field. There's something about college football in that when linemen chase a player Maybe it's not just linemen because wasn't it who did DK Metcalf? Remember he chased somebody down, he was flying out. We love that. DK Metcalf did it. I think it was somebody against the Cardinals. And then it was Larry Allen who passed away recently. There was an interception in a game, and Larry Allen ran like 70 yards down and made the tackle. Kenneth Grant, at whatever size he is, running down the field and tackling the Penn State player. It was just like Samaj Morgan getting caught from behind from the Iowa special teams guy in the Big Ten championship game. More than, Morgan making the 87-yard punt return. It was like, wow, this kid's incredible. It's part of football. NCAA stole your lunch money for 10 years. Ferris likes Elvis. Yeah, I liked Elvis too. I liked Todd Collins. Which one of those two lost to Notre Dame when it was Stonebreaker? That game. Woo! Keegan read with training that Wright III could get to a 4.2. A 4.240. Yeah, I'm in. Let's have a college preseason of one game. I'm in with that, Scott. I mean, I think let's go to 2, then they can play one easy one, and maybe you play a more attractive game. And you take that third one and make it into the conference. I think one thing that we can say and be pretty sure about it is that there's still tweaks to come in college football. We don't have to talk about it for 10, sometimes 20 years like back in the day. Now you can come up with an idea and it changes. Like when they had the leaders in the East and the West and the leaders in I mean, they just keep tweak. Big Ten, add 2, add 4, 2 divisions, all of this, 12 team, let's go to 16. It'll be changing. For sure. That's it. Ferris is talking the comp of Milroe and Orji. You know what I'm surprised about, and I was watching the Rose Bowl again last week, is that Orji's bigger than Milroe. And was it Herb Street when Orji came in for his play? And JJ had just made they were wondering if it was going to break up the timing because JJ was on a roll, and then Orji came in. I think it was Herb Street was like, I was down on the field and I stood next to Alex Orji and I was surprised at just how big he was. I like that. Old timer chiming in on Orji. He thinks it's possible that Orji has more combined running and throwing TDs than JJ did last year if he plays most of the year. Possible. I'll say it's possible. All right. Ferris just met up with Jim Harbaugh yesterday. Coach was not in the Sky Club. He was eating a footlong at the game. No first class seats, no Comfort Plus. He was in row 30, one row in front of the bathroom. I believe you, Ferris. I mean, why would you? If there's one thing about being a down to earth person and all of that. But I don't know what's Jim Harbaugh worth? 100 million, 200 million? I don't know. A lot. I'll say 100 million. If I have 100 million and I'm not chartering myself, first I would be chartering. I'd be on the Chargers plane. But if I wasn't, I would be in the very best first class. I mean, I don't want to sit like, scrunched up like this just to be like one of the regular folks. I mean, yeah, eating a Subway and, chilling out, not being in I've never been in a Sky Club. I probably would be over in the Sky Club. What's the Sky Club have that, how much better is the Sky Club, Ferris? I see it. I see the commercial with Jennifer Gardner. She's sitting there, and she's like, "Oh, this is pretty nice." They look like they look more comfy seats. I mean, it's VIP, right? Here's me. John saying he's a man of the people. Hard to argue with that. Gardner was a receiver for one season. That's right. One for some games, not a full year. Yeah, they were jerking him around. That was the year that I don't exactly remember the circumstances, but I do remember that Michigan went to Nebraska and they played this quarterback that had a deer in the headlight type look. I should remember his name, hosting the Maize and Blue Review Good Afternoon Michigan Football podcast, but I don't remember his name. But they had him, not Gardner, as the quarterback of that game. That was a screw-up job by Michigan. Forcier was great for one game. Yeah, that was against Notre Dame too. I'll never forget it, Richard. I go and, it was after the Notre Dame game, and there was a party afterwards. It was the party at the voice of Michigan football on radio now. Doug Karsh had a party, and we're all down there back before he had kids. Big, everybody's watching the games, and then they show the highlights, and everybody calms down, and you're watching it, and there's Forcier against Notre Dame, and what does the announcer comes on and say? Rich Rodriguez has found his trigger man. And everybody was just rollicking, and they thought, oh, the good times are going to roll with Forcier. Scott just naming Michigan quarterbacks here. I don't really know what's going on. What's this mean, Blue Wolverine? YouTube. Scott is just naming Michigan quarterback. Scott Dreisbach threw the game-winning touchdown to Mercury Hayes in that first game against Virginia in the Pigskin Classic, Lloyd Carr's first ever game as a head coach. What about Leach? Well, most people, you got to be there's nothing wrong. Look, I'm in my 50s. I think if you're in your 60s, you talk about Rick Leach, which is great. I know by history of Rick Leach, and I have watched on video Leach against Montana in 78. And then Leach, right as a true freshman. I mean, Rick Leach was great. Great quarterback. No doubt about it. Let's see. Oh, Borge. Hit the like and subscribe. Well, thanks so much. It's something that is really appreciated. I can tell you that. Here we go. Yeah, Scott is just... Scott, I sat next to Michael Taylor. I guess this is becoming a humble brag show for me. I sat next to Michael Taylor. He was an analyst for our football postgame, and all of those guys that were over the years hosts, experts, former Michigan players, I got to sit by in the press box. And Taylor, as a quarterback, and not everybody wants me on every play in their ear. What's going on here? What's happening? Everything. But Taylor, and I may have told this story one time, but I'm going to tell it again. Taylor's telling me, how you've got Tony Romo, who people got fascinated with predicting the plays. Oh, they're going to run here, Jim. Oh, Jim. Taylor, I'm sitting next to him. He's like, this is going to be a run to the right. Oh, sure enough, run to the right. Here's the way. He just knew. He was calling out every play. Well, then he says, Michigan, every time they motion, they never go against it. They always go to the side that they're motioning to. And so, I hear him say that. I'm watching. It's happening over and over and over again. And I see Lloyd Carr at this show that I'm taping with him. And afterwards, I say to him, turn the mic off and, have a little chit chat. And then I'd say, hey, coach, I noticed. I don't know how I told him, but I told him that, hey, you guys do this every single time. He said, we're just setting it up till we're watching our keys. And as soon as it doesn't happen, we're going to go the other way on him. That's what he tells me. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, that makes sense to me. Okay. You're reading the keys. Sure. You're always going to go to one way until somebody starts cheating, and then you dial it in and then you go away. The very next game in the first quarter, we're watching that game. And they send the guy in motion. And what do? They run it the other way and it goes for 20 yards. And I'm like, I felt like I was involved with that play call. I felt like they put it in. I didn't like when Nick Sheridan was playing quarterback Scott at Michigan. That wasn't. John wants to get those likes up. There you go, John. Let's get them up. Get those likes up. We get a few more. I'm just rolling through the RIP Ryan Mallett. Ferris likes the symmetry of Notre Dame in September, MSU in October, Ohio State in November. You got to pay a little bit more for the 5 stars. Yeah, I don't agree with this, Richard. Henson, what didn't you like about him winning all those games? And he comes in for his first game on the road against Illinois, and he looks like Superman. Night game in Champaign, played great. He played great in all of those games. He got hurt, and then he came on, and he was great in all those games. And if it wasn't for the one-armed bandit, that was the last time that Michigan had won a game at Ohio State. There really shouldn't be people. I'm not saying this. People got down on Henson because he left, but he had a great junior year, and he scored 50 plus against Northwestern and 30 plus against Drew Brees, and those were the only 2 games he lost. Had Drew stayed his senior year, you could make a case he would and could have been the greatest Michigan quarterback of all time based on his stats. There you go. We're coming around. Hey, let's go to Blue Wolverine. He's saying he is paying for you to hit the like button. Let's go. Let's do it. I'm going to read some more of the comments here in the remaining minutes, but Phil Steele tomorrow, 2:00. We'll have the college football expert here on the show. I just talked with Phil's camp, and he's coming in. Orji's going to be trucking linebackers. Yeah, this sends me back, natty or bust, to the comparison with Denard and Orji. I'm comparing them because they both played quarterback at Michigan, and what we have seen, like Denard, we know he was a great running back, and Orji, we don't know what he's going to be like as a thrower, but he looks like he's going to be a great runner, but he's going to be a different. Denard was get a seam, goodbye. I mean, he could just fly. Orji looks like he is going to be a physical runner. Fast, but physical. He already, just in the spring games, and you've seen him in the couple carries that he had, he's lowering his shoulder. Now, I know you get a little bit antsy, you get a little bit nervous when you have a quarterback. He'll have to be smart about that. They'll coach him up on that. They'll coach him up. John talking some Sky Club. Yeah, I don't know. I'm out of the picture, John, but what do I get at the Sky Club? How close is it to my gate? I mean, am I getting a foot massage and they slipping me on a little silk coat? Um, the bringing the food, rolling it over. How good could it be? Couple more questions here. Here's a quarterback one. How do I envision us spacing out our next three quarterbacks? Jaden Davis, Carter Smith, and Brady Hart. Is it even possible for each to get 2 years starting? Well, I actually hope here's how it plays out. I hope that Orji is the starting quarterback for the next 3 years. I don't know how likely that is or not, but that would be my hope if I'm a Michigan fan. After that, so you just have to see what it's going to be like with Orji before we start talking about like what Jaden Davis. And if one of the guys had success early on, I think what you can count on is that one or two of the other guys are going to go. That's just how the game is being played right now. So you hope the guy that you have right now, and in Orji, to me, is the presumptive starter. I am hoping that Orji plays all 12 games this year. And then I hope that Orji comes back next year and plays all 12 games. And then I hope he does it for a third year. That would be, to me, the best case scenario. Of course, however that's all playing out, you say, oh, Jaden Davis will be gone. Well, okay. I'm not pushing anybody out or doing anything else. Hell, Orji might not even start the first game. That the variance right now for Michigan, who's got a championship defense and a lot of talent offensively, and the defending national champs, we're not sure. I think that it's going to be Orji. He's the presumptive starter. Most everybody does. But how quickly they could go to the bench. Fall camp, some people think, after game one, certainly after game two. Woo! Start playing well. We still got some time to absorb all of that. I think that it depends on, the easy answer is it depends on how they all play. If I get Orji for 3, that means what? Jaden Davis would be a redshirt junior. He could have 2 years, but guys are going to be transferring if that happens. Chad says the most underrated play was the last field goal against OSU. It was clutch. Turner was clutch the entire second half of the season. He was really clutch against Ohio State. The funny thing that you mentioned that, Chad, is that the play before that was the one that I didn't like, that Sharon Moore. He was playing for the field goal. I thought they should have played for a first down there and not played for the field goal. That was my only, when he was the head coach and the play caller down the stretch, that was the only one that I argued with. It just put Michigan up by, what was it, a 30-24. It only put them up by 6. Oh, yeah, you're going to play to your defense. Think they can get you one stop. But, woo, to me, it was like if we're going to call it a gamble, it was a run to Corum. I know, offensive line, Corum, and everything else, but I'm thinking you get a first down there, you get a touchdown. That's what you're trying to get there. But you're right. That was an underrated play from last year. Does Orji have Milroe's speed and instincts? Yeah, I don't know. Ferris shared a selfie in his YouTube this morning. He tried to get Harbaugh to say smash. He said, I prefer not to do that. I will give you a selfie, though. Yeah, Ferris, smash is Sharon's thing. But hey, everything else he was pretty good with. That's nice. Here's Kenneth getting in. Good to see him. Here's do we want to have a little O'Corn talk? No, I don't. Natty or bust was at that Virginia game. It was hot. Woo, that was a hot one. Natty, man. That was one of the hottest games ever at Michigan, it seems like. Here's more Sky Club talk. They get little finger sandwiches. Put them in some cheese and crackers in a plastic to-go box to eat on the plane sometimes. Finger sandwiches at the Sky Club. Wow. Wasn't Morris the deer in the headlights and then lights out? No, I mean, he got hit in Minnesota. I was talking about on the road at Nebraska. There was a quarterback that they put in. It wasn't Morris. It was probably the only game he ever started. Wasn't Sheridan, although he was kind of the size of Sheridan. Look at, nobody knows. Nobody's put his name up there. Last John Navarre was nice, had a nice touch on the ball. Here's some Rice Krispie treats. You get those at the Sky box area as well, too. Romo did that because he had just played. Yeah, Romo could still predict. Like, it got to be something that your average football fan really enjoyed. I saw the fascination with Romo calling the plays, and then I'm like, then you find out how much money he was making, and so then you're really listening to everything that he say. But then there would be a lot of instances where, you would have whatever was going on in the game, down in distance or anything, and then he didn't know the answer. And I was like, this is what I would like a little bit more of. You actually knowing the rules, and you can't know it, but he's not. I'll take Olsen over Romo. And maybe Brady, but I want to watch Brady do a game before I go ahead and put him in front of Romo. Automatic. I don't know, Jim. It just became one of those things. He doesn't know about everything. So that's it. It was the defense that let Henson down. Tom Harmon was pretty good. Tom Harmon getting a standing ovation at Ohio State. How about that? All right, couple more here. We got Moose. Moose, who was in the chat watching Phillip Wright commit, was having a hard game. They were giving him a rough ride. I don't know if they're Texas fans or Texas A&M fans or anything else. Moose is hoping that we're all right about Orji. He doesn't trust his accuracy. Hopefully he's overreacting. Moose is just sitting around waiting for the college football game to drop. Woo! John says Dono was playing the game on Twitch Saturday. He was using Orji. That's a good tidbit, John. I didn't know that. Moose recorded the commitment live of Davis. There are the guys talking about online Dynasty League. He's running it. I got to jump in. Ooh. Drew Henson was a time traveler, and Tom Brady took his spot in the timeline. Sounds like a good movie. Was it Tom Hanks going to play Bob Ufer for... I don't know if he had read the script. This was a long time ago. Hanks somebody had wrote a script. I don't know if they took it that far. I don't know what the process is, but I'll just say there was talk about doing a Bob Ufer movie, and the talk is that Hanks was going to play Ufer, and obviously it never got off the ground. But that would have been great. Of course, there it was. Moose talking about the chat with the Phillip Wright. Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was getting a little bit, but that was my first time in, Moose, so I thought maybe that was par for the course when you get, you get rival fan bases going at it, and then You got to have people vouching for you and everything else, but it all turned out okay. A reminder, Phil Steele, 2:00 tomorrow, live right here. So that'll be available for you. Enjoy. I think people are getting ready to hit college football, and then they won't resurface until the end of August. What am I going to do? Tell people to be careful? It's a good thing that you can eat and drink while you play video games, or we might be in trouble. Maybe stretch out a little bit. Enjoy. It sounds like it's going to be a great time. That'll do it. Until tomorrow, 2:00. Everybody have themselves a great day. And yes, smash that like button. See ya.